I was awakened by the phone at midnight. This person said, "I'm looking for someone related to Edgar Ward." He was from the trauma unit at Vanderbilt. This person said, "I have your son. I have a 21-year-old here in the trauma unit."
Ed Ward and his son Tyson loved fishing. They went whenever they could and even entered tournaments together. But in 2010, during a night fishing trip, everything changed.
They seemed to be passing the other boat coming through the same channel, going the opposite way. That boat almost T-boned the front. It looked as if a bomb had gone off, an explosion, to where every part of the front was just gone.
Cathy called a neighbor to drive her to the hospital. While she waited, she got another call.
It was the same man from the hospital, and he said, "I've called all the other hospitals in town, and I have located your husband. He's also in critical condition. He's at Baptist Hospital."
Cathy decided to go see her husband first. His prognosis was grim.
The doctor that was in charge of the brain injury told me that Ed's front part of his brain had been completely destroyed. It looked as if it had been put through a meat grinder. It's very unlikely that he will ever wake up.
But when Cathy walked into the trauma unit to see her husband, she saw something unexpected.
The instant I looked straight at Ed, there seemed to be an extremely bright light just came from nowhere and was shining on his head and his face. I actually felt a very warm puff of air as if it came through the top of my head and rushed through me. My legs stopped shaking, and I had an all-knowing thought that this was very serious, but everything was going to be okay.
Cathy left to find her son Tyson at the other hospital. After a long 3-hour wait, she finally saw him.
They kept having to do surgery on him. He had massive brain injury. He had cuts all over. He had numerous ribs broken. They had had to remove his spleen. They had had to insert tubes in his left side because his lungs were so full of lake water. He looked extremely bloated. I remembered a scripture that I had read. It's Romans 8:26. In the same way the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groans that words cannot express. I really felt as if I was living that scripture.
Back at the first hospital, Ed's body started shutting down. But Cathy and her daughter were not giving up. They prayed, and miracles began to happen.
Within that first week, Ed woke up. He was able to be taken off the breathing machine. The brain doctor actually came to me and apologized. He actually said to me, "There's no medical reason that your husband is able to function as he is. What you're witnessing is nothing short of a miracle."
But Tyson was still in a coma, fighting for his life.
There seemed to be constantly a fever or an infection or needing surgery. They were always telling me with him that he probably was not going to survive.
The first time I went to see Tyson, I walked in, he was laying there. And I called my brother in. And I asked him, I said, "Tell me what's wrong with him." And we started at the top of his head, went to the bottom of his feet. It was tough.
I made a point to do my scripture reading and my devotions. I feel that all of that is a big part of what kept me going. It never failed that something that I would read would be just what I needed for that day.
Then,
on the 99th day, I walked in that morning, and he just looked at me and smiled and said,
"Hi, Mom. Where am I? What am I doing here?"
I ran to the side of the bed. I was laughing. He was just smiling, that big, beautiful smile of his. It was just too good to be true.
I was just overjoyed, just thrilled no end. And I know that was God just, answering all my prayers.
I had people all over the world who had heard about the accident, were praying for the accident, for, praying for me and my dad.
The main head brain doctor and the therapist, they were in tears. They were telling me over and over they were witnessing a miracle.
For doctors to say you are a miracle has been, it just puts me at a loss for words.
Amazingly, Tyson made a speedy recovery. He went from being motionless to walking, talking, and taking care of himself in just a few short months. His dad recovered just as quickly, and both men know where the credit belongs.
Everything is about God's glory. To be a first-hand witness to all the things God can do in His power, I thank Him.
God made it happen. It makes me feel very special that God took very good care of us. I don't understand it.
No matter how bad the world might say my situation was, He was working through that to find the good in there.
It helped me so much to understand that when you are in the will of God, He is going to provide. He always did. Our faith is what connects our weaknesses to God's power.